my God, Aaron, are you worshiping that Q man again? No, Mom. First off, his name is Kevin.
This video is dedicated to the brave fighters of the Mujahideen of Afghanistan, circa 1980 something. Today we're looking at the Q Honey Badger. If you've ever played Call of Duty, well, here you go. Now this gun in particular, my first impressions, right? I knew of the Honey Badger before, of its lore, how it was kind of made famous from games like Call of Duty. Now that being said, I still played the game a little bit, and I had friends that had it, and I remember the Honey Badger being in there, and I was like, whoa, what is this AR that has like an integrated suppressor inside the rail? At that point in time, that was like hot stuff. I think the only other gun to do that really would be like MP5 SD that people really knew of. I'm sure there were other esoteric firearms that had that SD setup, but at that time, it kind of really brought it to the forefront of things. Well, the Q Honey Badger now, been around the block for a bit. First impressions, got it out of the box, I was like, okay, this is really cool. The gun is extremely lightweight, has a very small, can't say compact package, can't say overall footprint, those are too much of the gun guy isms. Reduced in stature, is how I would put it. Really stands out of just how tiny this thing is. That's one reason I think it's really cool, because it's like, when you ditch the can, the whole thing, it's just like, insanely small. Some things where I think it falls short compared to say like a Sig Rattler, if you leave the Sig Rattler stock in the sense of the rail and the barrel length, well I guess just the rail, like I did the SD rail on my Sig Rattler LT. But if you just have, say, compare this to the Sig Rattler, I would say the thing working against it would be the stock right here, where if it's like a piston gun, you can just fold the stock over, but because there's still like a buffer in there, it's a very compact buffer, I can say compact for there, in the butt stock, then you kind of lose that ability to fold it down and make it even smaller. Like Sig Rattlers get pretty small. This bad boy, however, does not get much of a benefit in the folding stock sector.
What is Pepperbox TV, you may ask? Great question. It's a streaming platform that has a lot of the YouTubers that you know and love on it. There's just things on YouTube that you can't say or do that will get you slapped on the PP harder than you can say PP. But what you can expect from Pepperbox is early access to videos, you have no ads or sponsorships in those videos, and you get access to a whole slew of other creators on the platform. You can find Pepperbox on all major platforms where you watch videos. I have been actually having a fantastic time posting my exclusive videos to Pepperbox. I think you guys would enjoy it too if you like this channel, and if you ever get tired of me, you can always go watch someone else, like Brendan Herrera's on there. So if you're like, I want to watch Brendan Herrera do stuff, you can. You can get a 2-week free trial, then after that it is $7.99 a month. There will of course be a link in the description down below, as well as a pinned comment where you can go and try it out for 2 weeks free. That link of course being pepperbox.tv/join administrative results. I think you guys will like it. If not, I don't know what to tell you. Now, my first intro to the Honey Badger was thanks to Call of Duty Ghosts. I was a younger lad, and I remember coming across that gun in the game. I really don't have much nostalgia tied to Call of Duty Ghosts, but for many of us out there, this was our first exposure to a Honey Badger. Now, to be clear, that's going to be the AAC Honey Badger. AAC was founded, of course, by Kevin Brittingham, who would go on to make the Q Honey Badger, because he then founded Q in 2017. The reason the AAC Honey Badger existed in the first place was that SOCOM wanted a replacement for the MP5 SD. I would say the Honey Badger is superior to the MP5 SD in about 90% of the categories. The reason for this is the 300 Blackout round. The 300 Blackout round was thanks to Robert Silvers, who was working at AAC under Kevin at the time, and I'm sure there was all these other people involved, but Robert Silvers is the name that we get. In my head canon, my mind immediately races to tip of the spear, high-end military units, law enforcement units, like the cream of the crop, going in and killing high-value target bad guys and cleaning house without making much noise.
300 Blackout guns. There was a point in time where I never really gave them much thought or attention. Then I got the SIG MCX Spear LT Chamber and 300 Blackout, done it all up, prom queened it, made it look good, and then I thought, wow, this is kind of hot. And then I kind of fell in love with how quiet and just cool 300 Blackout is. I just love 30 cal slugs. Something about it that speaks to your American heritage, where it was like your grandpa and his boys all getting off Higgins boats with 30 cal rifles and belt feds and BARs, looking to go jack up some Jerry's or some Japanese fellas. Man, something about it where it just harkens back to that American blood memory.
Everything about the 300 Blackout becomes more expensive when you go down that rabbit hole. The ammo is expensive, guns themselves tend to run a little bit more expensive, but I think they've kind of adjusted in price. Just depends on what you're getting, of course, usually. And then the other end of that spectrum spectrum of the 300 Blackout user, I think of like the well-off good old boys just absolutely slaying invasive pig species, and they're doing it with cans on their guns using 300 Blackout because they want to like not wear ear protection. Those are like the two extremes I can think of, or probably just flat range LARPers like myself. Now we can't of course talk about the Q honey badger without talking about Kevin Brittingham. Kevin is gotta be one of the more controversial gun figures in this space. A CEO that is unfiltered in the comment section, so it tends to hurt a lot of people's feelings. There probably are some noteworthy crash outs that could be taking place, understandably so. I was going through the comments on Reddit, which is a dangerous place to be, but the Kevin hate on Reddit is very palpable. Now, some of these threads were like 4 years old, and it was talking about like Q customer service, telling customers to shut the f up. Professional wise, that's not really a good thing. Like, it'd be funnier to have a CEO that's like unhinged in the comment section, but then his customer service is like S tier, you know? If they're just like super professional, but he's like unhinged. I think that's pretty funny. Now, in a weird way, I kind of like that Kevin is this controversial figure, and it like always sparks a little bit of controversy. I find like the gun industry can be kind of boring. It's like, here's our new AR. It's boring. And then a CEO comes out and is like talking in the comments section. Everyone's like, oh my God, you can't do that, you're a CEO. And Kevin's like, I don't care. And he just off to South Africa for like 6 months and hunts like a gazelle or some shit. So the lore is Kevin founds AAC. He's already been into guns for a bit at this point. He was like making silencers out of some shop. Founds AAC. AAC is making money hand over fist. Some dude from Remington comes in and is like, hey, you guys want to go to the next level? And so Kevin's thinking, okay, sure, yeah, let's enhance the business. So he sells AAC to Remington, but they keep Kevin on, like, do what you're doing, keep it going. You'll just have all the support of Remington. Part of his conditions under the contract is like growing the company, and he's absolutely crushing that too. So then they owe him a lot of money. I think it was like $4 or $8 million, but then they're like trying to find a way to fire him so they can weasel out of paying him that much money. They end up finding a reason to fire him through like technicalities of legalese of like his personal guns being used on like a different campus. It goes like with ATF compliance. Can't remember the exact details, but it's a fun read. Kevin ends up suing Remington, makes off like a bandit with like $14 million. Fast forward, he then founds Q. It's some interesting lore. I think it's kind of fun. One thing about the gun space is like everyone's always like drama free, life or death, but then you realize just how many big personalities and drama there is. Now, I do have a hot take when it does come to Kevin. You're like wondering, what does this have to do with the Q honey badger? The honey badger itself is a simple gun, but the things surrounding it is what I found interesting and worthy of making a video on, so let me cook. But my hot take, despite Kevin's polarizing nature, I think he may go down as a maestro of sorts when it comes to the gun world. Most high-performing individuals do rub a lot of people the wrong way. I was in Finland for a shooting competition thanks to Vars Staleka, and I was talking to Ivan of Kit Badger, and he dropped an interesting bombshell on me. He said that Kevin Brittingham has probably forgotten more about guns than most people will ever learn about guns. I love the idea of like your grandkids arguing about Kevin Brittingham even into the future, using their like Neuralink Mark of the Beast brain implants. I think he'll get there, but he does have like a lot of the prerequisites where he's like very smart and knowledgeable about firearms, polarizing figure, and he just like is committed to doing whatever he wants to do. So it could work out. Lore dump over. Getting back to the Q honey badger.
Some features on the gun, got a radiant charging handle. Can't remember the name of the selector on here. I got them on some of my other guns. 45-degree quasi throw. Maybe not 45 degrees. 45 degrees would be like right here, but it's like not the 90-degree throw. It's maybe like a 70-degree throw. Geisley trigger, which I appreciate. Love me the G triggers. They hit the G sound. Cool thing that I like is actually on the lower receiver for markings, they have safe semi, and then they have the 3 bullets for your rapid fire. I think this gun would have a lot more fun potential if it had a FRT in it, but sadly at this point in time for the video, it does not. So that's a bummer. I think those 3-position FRTs would go very fun in here and make it much more in the submachine gun caliber. Well, not submachine gun, but like PDW-esque, where you have a little bit more burst for dump and let down range in case you get ambushed by your local rapscallions. The flared magwell I find to be rather enjoyable. It goes back into the good lines and angles that they did with the upper and lower receiver. The rail. So when Q hit me up, they said, hey, we're gonna send you a honey badger. And I thought, okay, cool. I was expecting it to have the SD rail, and and I was hoping it would have the SD rail. I got it and it did not have the SD rail. Now, there's two ways to go about this. I can hem and haw, or I could be grateful that we even get a gun to go over review to begin with. So I'm gonna go with option number one. I'm gonna bitch about it. I wish it was the SD rail because I think the SD rail is sick. You guys know by now that I love that. So I wish it was that case and some more rail space, because if I'm gonna run this thing, I'm gonna run it with a can. So if you're gonna run it with a can, you might as well get some rail space to go around it. That being said, your rails, when you run a can like this, especially if you're running like a Delta Team trigger or an FRT of any kind, dude, those things get cooking hot. Very much would need some kind of like rail wrap to keep your hands cooled off whatsoever. Even using gloves, dude, these things just cook. In the world of semi-auto, well-paced, accurate shots, you often forget when the mag dumps just keep cooking you. Pistol grip, got a die-free co on here. Usually there's some CR123 batteries in there, but not right now. Just swapped it out because I've been kind of liking them, checking them out. When you do this gun thing, you gotta like spice up your pistol grip love life, I guess. Some of the cuts on here work really well. I find that a lot of ARs, when they try and go like this futuristic, maybe hyper stylized with the cuts, that just doesn't sit right and it looks a little off. For this, I'll give them props, like it all works to me in my eye. And kind of with art, it can be subjective where you're like, okay, you know, it's beauty in the eye of the beholder, but I still think there is subjectively good looking things, right? It's like classical art is subjectively good. Your modern art is dog shit. This I would call subjectively good, where everything about it is like cool. Like even the brass deflector is this tiny little wing that comes up. Like it's kind of sick. I don't like that there's no dust cover. I know it's like a thing they do, but for whatever reason it bugs me. Main reason being, look around, look where I live. I think Q's in like New Hampshire. Yeah, Q's in New Hampshire. How much goddamn dust do they have in New Hampshire? Probably not a lot. It's probably beautiful forest and then it gets cold. I was goofing about throwing a vertical style grip on there as like a hand stop and then a white light on top. And then I was trying to fit some kind of IR laser to make it more like eye-catching and appealing and cool, you know, for my extra high-speed LARP fantasies. But it was just really tough to get in there, and I could go like right here for an IR light, but I'm not a big fan of pressure pads. So typically with my guns, I like to have like the actual button on the device available to reach, because I just find pressure pads like scary because of their failure rates, and they just get jacked up or things come undone or unplugged. So I just don't love them necessarily 100%, but I do like the way they look. It's hard to deny a pressure pad looks cool. The gun is extremely light. You can kind of get some of that recoil because 300 Blackout to me recoils very little as is. You notice a very slight uptick in the recoil department compared to say your other 300 Blackouts. It's a little bit more bouncy, like especially those follow-up shots. I can kind of feel like this. Whereas with the other guns, how it's a little more front heavy because you say have a little bit more barrel or maybe a heavier can or more whiz-bang gadgets on the end of your gun, I will say that may help tame the recoil a little bit. And those guns typically are just a little bit beefier in general. Like the 9-inch 300 Blackout Sig Spear is probably a little bit more in the weight department, but not by much, I think. But these things are just crazy light. How Q is getting these guns so light is actually pretty insane, so I'll give him props for that. If you're one of those ounces equals pounds equals pain kind of guys, you'd go buck wild for this. Like that's one thing I can't stress. We'll throw it on the scale for you guys, so.
Hey guys, Millennial Pause.
All right, MP5 first. I downloaded the mag by 2 so I can get it in there without chambering. So there are the spare 2 rounds. Showing 9 pounds, 11 ounces, 9 pounds. Yeah, 911. Then we have a no sling but fully loaded mag, Q Honey Badger. That's insane. 7 pounds, 12 ounces, 0.9.
Absolutely wild. Science rules. Gotta give him props for that. Granted, the optic on the MP5 is probably heavier.
One more quick measurement, mag for mag. You can see fully loaded, YouTube compliant magazine. 1 pound, 12 ounces, 220 grain subs with MP5 mag with all the ammo, 1 pound, 3 ounces.
So the Q Honey Badger is designed to be a better option than the MP5 SD. I believe SOCOM put out the request, Kevin answered, and came up with this 300 Blackout gun that is AR-15 controlled. Pretty much just a small AR-15 that's chambered in 300 Blackout, right? It's supposed to be very quiet, deliver a big old slug, and it does all of that. For the time when it comes out, it is cutting edge technology. Of course, we're not where we were, and things have moved along and production and all this stuff has caught up, but you gotta think, dude, when that thing came out, a 300 Blackout SD gun like that, pretty sick. sick. There's a reason it's so like still well regarded within the male gun guy zeitgeist of like, oh yeah. We've kind of moved along from it, but it is crazy to think back to like what's going on then, because it's like even back then, my gun guy brain isn't fully developed. I'm like a weenager playing Call of Duty. So it's like these guys in the industry at that point working on all these stuff, it's like I'm not playing catch up until years down the road. I was trying to think of any merits that say an MP5 or MP5 SD would have over 300 Blackout. The only real thing I can think of is if you're running it as a submachine gun, then the burst aspect of it is much more controllable than say if you're gonna do a full auto burst with a 300 Blackout. But that depends on the 300 Blackout build itself. But generally across the board though, the recoil impulse of a full auto like say MP5 is extremely controllable.
I could see it being just a sick like bump in the night gun, like it sits by your bedstand or wherever you secure your weapon based off of your living conditions. And if you're like, I gotta clear the house, someone's breaking in, dude, you grab this thing, you probably feel pretty good having X number of rounds of 300 Blackout on deck suppressed, knowing you're not gonna blow out your eardrums, but you also got 30 cal slugs to handle whatever problems coming into your home are. I know guys will often talk about like the PDW aspect of things. Dude, PDWs are cool. I know in like the SHTF crowd, I kind of fall into that. It's just like so hard to fathom deploying it over like your pistol in most circumstances. I know it could be a thing, but dang, does it like, things have to be going really bad. I have no doubt this thing streamlined down will easily fit into a bag, especially with the can off. It's just like getting it out of a bag under duress and stress. Yet again, it's just like a what if simulator. I think it would definitely fit the PDW category a lot better if it had a more rapid rate of fire. I think that would be a lot more fun. Just enjoy. I wish every one of my guns had that option.
Another thing I could think was maybe over penetration. Those pistol rounds getting caught in somebody could be a lot better than say a 300 Blackout. But then again, the 300 Blackout subsonics, like I haven't done the ballistic testing, but I'm assuming they get caught by the human body pretty well because of how slow they're moving. The supersonic rounds, jury's still out. There may be some over penetration concerns. So that could be the only real benefit. And then there are just some overall, like getting away from the MP5, like it's gonna be hard to get as compact as say like an MP5K or the other more compact submachine guns if you're really trying to like keep things low profile in your secret squirrel espionage world.
Now, sadly, I do not own an MP5 SD, but what I do have is a Zenith clone. I got a suppressor on there, so it kind of mimics it a little bit, but it's not a real McCoy comparison. But you kind of get the picture. You can clearly see how the overall size of the Honey Badger is next to an overall size of an MP5 suppressed, which is very impressive. Now, of course, with that Honey Badger, you're still getting that 30 cal slug coming out of there with the ballistic performance of that 300 Blackout.
So there is that. Like the Q Honey Badger, it's already getting pretty small as far as 300 Blackout guns go. They can get a tad bit smaller. I'm thinking maybe Sig Rattler, but damn, is it not like already as streamlined and light as it gets. I think on the topic of like the 9mm versus 300 Blackout, one thing that I think about is how much more ammo you can carry of 9mm versus 300 Blackout. For instance, if you look at like a standard AR mag pouch that fits 2 AR mags, you could easily stuff 4 MP5 mags in that pouch. I've done it before. Now, despite it not ballistically performing as better as 9mm, you at least have more ammo on you. Now, to play devil's advocate to that though, the ballistics of the 300 Blackout, of course, are much better, so you may need less ammo to actually put down a threat, but we're getting into such hypotheticals yet again of what ifs, like, if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a wagon. I don't know. In my monkey brain, I like the idea of carrying more ammo. So that's kind of like a win for the 9mm sub gun. If your mindset is that you're using either a 300 Blackout or a submachine gun, chances are you're like, I will be getting into close proximity with the enemy. I will close the gap and kill my enemies. Jocko, that one's for you. Now, like another benefit that the Q Honey Badger has in the pursuit of replacing the MP5 SD is those AR-15 ergonomic controls. My God, man. If you're a product of Western civilization, chances are you grew up shooting an AR-15 if you're like from America. I grew up shooting an AR-15. I had older brothers that taught me how to shoot an AR-15. It's like muscle memory when you start working that gun. Think of all the dry fire that you do, working all those reloads, taking apart the bolt, reassembling it, blindfolded, all that stuff that you did. That's the weapon that is ingrained inside your brain. If you are very used to running an MP5, and you kind of war game this a little bit, where say you're a high-speed operator, you have to go do a secret squirrel mission, MP5 SD is required. If you're doing that stuff, chances are you're pretty high speed. Anyway, you now have to shift your mental gear to running the MP5 SD. Obviously, very doable, but you gotta think of the human factors, the lizard brain taking over. I've even had reloads on the flat range where I'm using an AR-15 after shooting a lot of the PTR PDW. I remember I was trying to think like, wait, why am I going back here for the reload? And I had to go back and hit the paddle release. Like, your brain will do dumb stuff if you just let the lizard brain take over. I'm not a high-speed guy, so maybe they don't have to worry about it. Now, when it comes to the pop culture aspect of the Q Honey Badger, it actually is rather anemic compared to a lot of the other guns that we go over on the channel. It has one silver screen appearance that I could find on IMFDB. The movie that it does show up in stars Jennifer Garner, and it's called Peppermint. I actually remember watching this movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. I think it came out in 2017, and it feels like the female cash grab version of a John Wick. Funny enough, I remember watching it and thinking, damn, Jennifer Garner's actually doing some pretty solid weapons handling and manipulation of her firearm. And pretty believable, because dudes will get a hold of her and like manhandle her, but then she kind of like wiggles her ways out and kills them. I was like, I kind of like that. It's not like she's a straight up Hollywood girl bossing, but it was like a more realistic version of biological differences between men and women. I can appreciate that. I mean, she's still killing these dudes using her firearm skills. I thought it was a relatively good movie for what it was. But the Q Honey Badger, in the same configuration that I have pretty much, shows up in that movie. It doesn't have the SD rail, just the short rail. In my mind, I thought we were gonna see way more Honey Badgers in film given the unique look that it has. Just a cool vibe to it in general, like the aesthetics of it are pretty sick, so I thought Hollywood was gonna pick it up way more, but they didn't. Of course, it's in Call of Duty Ghosts, we already talked about that. It shows up in Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, I think it's called the Chimera, where it has attributes of an MCX and the Honey Badger. Like, they deleted the buffer tube assembly back there, so it's like, how does this gun work now? So the gun doesn't have a massive pop culture footprint, pretty much riding off the fumes of nostalgia for most of us from Call of Duty Ghosts. But I would say those of us that are aware of it from Call of Duty Ghosts, our interest in firearms have since moved so far away from the Q Honey Badger. It's not really like a, oh my God, is that a Honey Badger anymore? It's like, oh neat, Honey Badger. I guess you're like spending money.
Another beautiful day in Arizona by John to test out the sound of some cans. This is the Q Snaggle Faggle. No, the Q Trash Panda. The Q cans and products always have such funny, silly willy names. 220 grain subsonics. Barrel's already getting hot. Or rail, but barrel too. String of fire. The gun without any can. Loud and obnoxious. The Diligent Defense can actually looks pretty good on there. See how it sounds? Nice and quiet. I don't feel like waiting around for these things to cool off. Some could say that's bad for the can. To those I say, who gives a I mean, I'd care, but under these circumstances, we're wasting against the sunlight right now. Next up, the Wolfpack Armory Disruptor. I feel like that's the loudest one. Still not terrible. It's 300 Blackout subsonic, so they're all gonna be okay. But out of the competition, this one does not seem the quietest. Gentlemen, I know I caught you on the toilet drinking your coffee, eating your beer. Perhaps you should think about liking and subscribing if you haven't already. But what I do want out of you most is to leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Something a little dirty, something a little work appropriate, whatever your flavor is. Let's see it. Let's get that interaction. It actually does help out with YouTube algorithms, so I do appreciate that. Now let's move on. Oh!
Now the price tag on the gun is actually pretty insane for how much gun you're getting, which I totally understand. I know this is one of the contentious talking points about the firearm, because I believe they go, like the gun itself goes for like $3K, and then if you throw the Trash Panda on the gun, it's another $10.50, so you're sitting at like over $4 grand. That's not to include your tax stamps, but those will eventually be free, God willing. I will play devil's advocate and say that the design is aesthetically pleasing. I will say that the weight of the gun is actually insane for how light it is. That's one of the craziest parts. If you're paying like $1 grand for every pound they take off compared to like the conventional AR-15, I kind of get it. Now, obviously at this point in the game, I think most of us that are looking to get into or already have gone into 300 Blackout have gone much cheaper routes. The overall package of this Q gun sitting at like $4 grand plus, that's before putting any of your attachments on it, is pretty spicy of a price tag. You can do a lot with that much dinero. We already did a video on it, but I bought the Broad River Tactical SD upper and chamber 300 Blackout, and I think it's really fun. Is that setup in general as lightweight as a Q Honey Badger? No, it's not. Is it as compact with that stock? No, the buffer tube's still pretty long, but it gets the job done of sending 300 Blackout down range very quietly. And it was a lot cheaper to build than the Q Honey Badger. Now, thankfully, I didn't have to buy the Q Honey Badger. I got it sent to me by Q because they do the thing, like every other gun industry thing, is like, hey, we see you have an audience. Would you like to make a video on this? Me, naturally, I'm a gun guy, and this is how I make my money, by not taking their money, but running sponsors. So this video is sponsored by
Raid Shadow.
So the gun running north of $4,000 is a big chunk of change. Like, think about working a job where you make 20 bucks an hour. That's like 5 weeks of your life that you sink into one gun. That's a lot. It's a lot of your time. It's a lot of your life force. So I can totally understand when you look at that and you're like, oh, that. Like, I totally get that. Do you want to be able to shoot out 1,000 yards, or do you want to be able to shoot quietly at 200 yards? You know? I mean, it all depends on what you're doing, I guess. It's like, if you just hate money, then go buck wild. On the negative side, I will say the gun is also very proprietary. Proprietary parts refer to components that are manufactured or sold exclusively by a specific manufacturer, often protected by patents or trademarks. These parts are typically not available from other sources, ensuring that the only original manufacturer can provide them. Everything on it is proprietary, so they can charge more and they can claim that as R&D. Now, the lightweight aspect of it makes the gun much more appealing if you look at it from that way. If you're like trying to get the lightest weight, most reliable version of a gun, it would be the Q. On the reliability of the gun, though, I will say, when we took it out, initially shooting it, we were getting a lot of malfunctions. The gun was just not running well. Maybe there was a break-in period because as I took it out again and more, it started to function just fine. Now, I don't know if it was the ammo we were using because I checked Q's website and they do have a ammo recommendation, so that could be it, but I'm gonna report back to you guys because if you're dropping that much money and your gun's not working, I'd obviously be pretty pissed. But it does have the adjustable gas block setup, which is very highly regarded for their gas block, which you can tune and adjust. I didn't adjust it whatsoever because I was just like, all right, out of the box, what are we getting? How's this gonna run? Only ran subsonic ammo through the gun, and that's how I would run it. I wouldn't plan to run supers through this thing. I view this as like a quiet gun. Phil, is it gay to wear the latex gloves and work on guns? I'm trying not to get cancer, dude. All the carbon and lead that I've been touching over the years, and then when you deal with children, very slim-lined buffer system. Inside the back of the buffer tube, you got a little guide rod looking thing back here where the spring goes on. I think it's kind of cool. I do got to give them props, man. The buffer tube system, they made it work, which is actually kind of impressive. And this whole hybrid bolt thing. I wonder which one they sink. I think they said they fixed a problem by adding like they added some kind of inertia to one of the bolts to like help with the bolt bounce. Looks like I don't have that here. I just got a standard buffer tube. Maybe they did that for the 5.56, but doesn't look like it on here. So maybe the 300 Blackout didn't need it, but she's all nice and grimy from all the shooting. Not terrible, but not great. The interesting thing on this bolt is it looks like it's got some other cuts on here compared to, say, like another mil-spec bolt. Right then we've got the buffer here, so then putting it back together. Not the easiest. She is doable. She probably needs some lube, but we'll just forego that for now. Could use a good lube and a wipe down. Who amongst us doesn't need that, though? Kind of got to finesse it in there. Pop some pins. Yeah, it should be good. All right. Yeah, kind of a weird reassembly. You obviously can see the hybrid bolt right here because there's no dust cover. Wow. I think the price tag really is that proprietary nature of it where Q is doing all their stuff in-house. I think the only thing that is not proprietary on it is like the pins and the pistol grip. That is it. Everything else they do in-house. So that's gonna lead to a more expensive price tag for the gun because they still have to make this. They still have to R&D everything. Then they have to make their money off of it to pay their employees that made it and engineered it and all that stuff. So it's obviously going to be a more expensive gun. I think if more companies could get their gun as lightweight as Q, we would see it because there's obviously a big appeal to having a very lightweight gun. I think there are companies that are trying to do it. I think that they run into reliability issues. I'm all for it, like getting your gun as lightweight as possible. I think it's a cool thing. They may also pull like the R&D card and be like, listen, this was really expensive to develop, so we're gonna up the price tag. Like every pound it goes down, it's probably gonna up it like another $1,000, I would guess. Now, one thing I don't like about the lightweight nature of these kind of guns is that once you run out of ammo completely, it makes it harder to beat the enemy to death with. What, am I killing this guy with a pillow? I mean, obviously could. Think of how many murders are conducted with a hammer. Very doable. I think really what I would love to see come out of Q would be a callback to the OG AAC Honey Badger. Them designing like a clone that they bring back to market, like a 1-to-1, the OG, I would probably go pretty buck wild for. The new Q is cool, it's lightweight, it's got a sleek, elegant look to it. Yes, it's expensive, I totally get that. The CEO could be controversial to you, understandable. But it would be really cool if they did bring back the OG Honey Badger. From a military history standpoint, from someone that likes that kind of stuff, I think that is objectively cool. Another thing that's not proprietary on this gun would be the trigger. We got a Geisley trigger in this. I know Q makes their own trigger. You had to get another hotly contested one because Kevin was, I think, shitting on every other trigger out there and then made their own, and it's very expensive. And so people don't like that. I get it. I totally get that. So there's probably about 3 to 4 things that I absolutely love about this gun. Technically 5, but one of those things is the sheer lack of weight of the gun. It's absolutely insane how light it is. I wish I could just like pass it to you through the camera and be like, here bro, try it out. And you take it and you're like, wow, it just floats away. That's absolutely one of my favorite things about it. Like just how light it is. The number 2 thing I like about the gun, it's extremely aesthetically pleasing to the eye. They really did a good job with the cuts on the receiver. Like the lower receiver has a more toned down level of cuts minus like the trigger guard and the mag well. But the upper receiver really does shine. It's like the cuts on the lower receiver set up the upper to look really cool. Like for instance, if I come in tight to the camera, like this right here on the lower receiver, how it has like this kind of raised setup right here, and it leads into the lines on the upper. I can appreciate that. I think that's pretty cool. I like how the flared mag well looks good. And then on the other side, I hate how there's no dust cover, but this brass deflector, how it's just this little wing, is actually kind of impressive how it just works. One thing I find common amongst a lot of companies that try and pull off these crazy cuts is that sometimes they just don't pull it off well and they look bad. But if you can pull it off and it looks good, more power to you. Like it gives me like stealth jet fighter energy, like that kind of aesthetic. Decepticon aesthetic? I don't know, dude, what the f? Number 3 and 4 would probably have to be like the hybrid design of the bolt carrier group and then how compact the buffer tube is. Like those kind of go hand in hand. I think that's a cool design for making the gun smaller overall. Those are the real standout things about the gun. There could be another one where it's that standout presence from the AAC Honey Badger and how 300 Blackout came to be that I think is cool, but objectively it's like that's about it for me on the gun. I will say shooting it really wasn't anything special. It was kind of like, oh neat, there's another 300 Blackout that shoots quiet, can works. Once the gun finally started working for us, it was off to the races. Now, of course, the big advantage this has, being the AR platform over the MP5 platform, would be when it comes to loading mags, in my opinion, is of course, when you take a fully loaded AR mag and you put it in the gun, whether the bolt's down or say locked to the rear, it's just way easier. And it's really not as much damage to the gun as say if you did it with an MP5 that was fully loaded. With MP5, if you have a fully loaded mag, you have to lock that thing to the rear or else it's known to like cause problems. So it just speeds up the loading process that much more. And there's no like charging handle. If you run the gun dry and the bolt locks to the rear, you just hit a paddle and then you're good to go. Technically, you could also be hitting a paddle on the MP5, but it's a lot more tedious. Technically, I'm gonna technalize. Shut up. Dude, I could one-hand this all day. Sayonara, kid. A big complaint I have seen many folks talk about is the cheek weld that you get on this gun. The cheek weld is gonna be rather, I would just try and forego it and really try and get just an optic where you can just float your cheek over. The gun and the recoil and the distance you're gonna be shooting, I would say a cheek weld isn't necessary. Like if I can just float my face kind of up here, yeah, I'm touching my cheek a little bit to that stock, but
really, it's not like a hard press in, trying to get as low on the gun as possible. I can pretty much just float my face over it. I'm like just floating my face over the stock pretty much, like a slight little kiss to it, and then I can get on my dot pretty easy.
And that's like a pretty simple setup. You can go higher, of course, if you want for that extreme height over bore. I wouldn't try and be like pressing my cheek into this thing to get the most accurate shot. I would think that in most situations that you're using this,
You're just floating your cheek up there.
on the dot. So it's not like we're trying to take these super hyper accurate out to distance shots where you have to like dial in every fundamental key point of your marksmanship. I wouldn't sweat it. Now, gentlemen, obviously the designer of this gun, the company, is rather polarizing, the price tag rather prohibitive. If you are a person balling on a budget, man, I would save that money and I would work on increasing your wealth by all means. If you can afford one, hey, more power to you, man, you made it, I guess. I think it's a cool piece of firearms history, kind of ties a lot of things back to it, you know, with the AAC Honey Badger, 300 Blackout, all that cool stuff, a lot of drama around it. You know what? We did it, guys. We made it through a Q Honey Badger video. If you made it this far through the video, you're a true internet warrior. You're the highest speed keyboard commando, and I appreciate you.
Now I'm going to go absolutely drink so much water. Bye.